Ladies and gentlemen, I'm recording this video in November 2025. And at the time of recording this video, Magnus Carlsen is still the best chess player in the world. Now, just like in any sport, what truly separates somebody from everybody else? And what truly separates that somebody for like 10 to 15 years from the rest of the field? In this video, I will try to uncover the secret ability that Magnus has that many of his contemporaries do not. And it is the ability to navigate the transition from a middle game to an endgame, to place all the pieces on just the right squares for sustained pressure 40, 50, 60 moves down the line. I'll be showing you 5 games that he recently played on chess.com. These games will blow your mind at how precise the play is. And I did say this is November 2025. I'm recording this on Thanksgiving, so happy Thanksgiving to those of you celebrating. And as we know, Thanksgiving is also closely tied to Black Friday. So for the only sale of the entire year in 2025, on Chessly, my educational platform, we are doing a Black Friday deal for all of you. 44% off. Technically 44.5% off, but 44% off. You can check it out. You can also try it for free. No card is required. I repeat, I know that might sound rare, but no card is required. And in December, we will be having a holiday challenge. So if you start a trial now, you will be able to at least, participate in the challenge. I think it will be a tremendous amount of fun. Anyway, without further ado, let us go and look at 5 Magnus Carlsen games. These are really incredible. So these are all against grandmasters. The first one is against somebody named Jules Moussard, French grandmaster. This is an anonymous player. I don't know who this is. This is one of Turkey's bright stars. This is Edis Gurel, incredible player, 3,200. Then we have Hans Niemann I'm going to show you, and we will end the video. These last two are just the way Magnus won those last 2 games. It was like, I had to build a YouTube video just around those 2 games. So this is the very first game. Magnus playing with the black pieces, right? So we're focusing on the end game and the transition from the middle game to the end game. That only he is able to do stuff like this. His opponent opens up with e4, and Magnus plays the modern defense. Very, very nice opening. Something that is dynamic, solid. It can lead to all sorts of complicated and interesting positions. So g6, d6, bishop g7, a6. I've had this position many times myself with black. White plays bishop d3, and Magnus goes bishop g4. Magnus really likes to put the pressure on this knight to destabilize the white center. And after this move, bishop e3, he plays knight c6, attacking the center pawn once again with the knight and the bishop. Jules plays back bishop e2, and now Magnus plays knight f6 and very happily gives away the bishop. It's because the bishop is not going to really have anywhere to stand in the long run. We rather trade it, right? Bishop takes back. Now we castle, and Magnus goes for e5. Why does he go for e5 straight away? Well, it's clear that his structure and his position is pointed at the white center like this. Another thing, again, very good at playing against the enemy pieces. When you have traded your bishop for this knight, you know that the bishops want open space. They would like to open up the center. This sort of prevents that, right? So now we have d5, and the light squared bishop that white was granted, I mean, this is not really, you don't even understand where the bishop is. It just looks like a chain of pawns. Magnus drops the knight back to e7. Jules plays a4. He's preventing expansion, and even he's going to play a5 himself. Magnus drops the knight back because you have to activate the pawn. You have to go for a pawn break in the position to fight back. a5. Very good restriction so far, and white has an early advantage. There's f5. Rook a4. Look at this move. Immediately bringing the rook to pressure the queen side. This is very high-level play from the white side as well. Now we have king h8. What's incredible about this position, I want to tell you, it's 0.4 is the evaluation, right? 0.4. White is very slightly better. The best move in the position is literally king to h8. I mean, this is not a move that I can explain to you. I can try my best to explain it to you, but how? How do I tell you that literally king h8 here is the best move? How does he know? How does he know? And how did he play that move in 3.9 seconds? He just knows where the pieces should go. Part of it is the fact that the light squares for black are weaker since the bishop was traded, and there are positions where a queen could attack your king or a bishop could attack your king, and just sort of generally you feel safer here on top of maybe using the g8 square. Maybe you put a knight there and then you bring the knight into the game, like maybe you play knight g8 or bishop h6, trade the bishop. But like, how do I explain to all of you watching that king h8 is the best move? I don't know. Maybe you can also learn to play moves like king h8 by checking out the Black Friday sale on Chess League. No, definitely, I really don't think you're ever going to play king h8. Rook b8. Now at this point, Musar threatens a draw. So he attacks his rook, Magnus goes here, and Jules is like, hey, I'm happy to draw you. Magnus voluntarily gets a worse position because he wants to play on. Okay, now white is better. It's not really clear why white is better. Magnus plays knight g8, so there we go. Now we see, we do see that square getting utilized. There was no other way to bring the knight back into the game, and now white plays queen c4. Magnus, in fact, look at this, trading off the bishop, put the knight there, move the king to the corner, put the knight there, and is now trading off one of the bishops to remove the bishop pair from white's possession. We have pawn takes f5, and this is a mistake. So already pawn takes f5 is a mistake. Why? Two pawns standing like this, they defend four very key squares, and they just make it difficult for white to maneuver in the position. Now, from this point forward, like I said, Magnus has this secret skill that other players don't have. His ability to take this position, and in the next 10 moves, transform it into a hopelessly lost position for white. Mind-blowing. Like a snake that just wraps around you. Watch. A lot of people would be thinking, start a checkmating attack, e4, knight e5. Watch. So rook e1, Magnus trades off the bishop. That was his idea. So now, what do we do here? Maybe we play e4 to attack the bishop. Maybe we bring the knight back into the game. Maybe we attack the rook with f4. What do we do? Rook b8. What? Okay, rook b8. I mean, he's obviously trying to maybe move the queen so that everything stays protected. Okay. Queen h4. There's no threat to this move. Magnus plays queen e8. Okay, so yeah, he wanted to liberate the queen a little bit. Jules keeps attacking his pawns. Magnus plays rook c8. And now we defend this pawn by activating a knight. He's not touching these pawns. Not touching them. He's not moving them yet. White goes knight back to e2. Now we offer a queen trade. We don't fear the opponent with no queen. With no queen, we know we're safe. And from here, it's only slightly better for black. But why is it better? The knights are better than the bishop. The bishop that Magnus gave his opponent literally 19 moves ago is still standing on that square, and let me tell you, that dude ain't doing anything. c4, this move defends the center, but weakens the squares behind. Now we play rook b8. You know why we play rook b8? You're never going to believe why we play rook b8. Because now we can activate on the side of the board we never had any business activating. When white captures, we actually throw in a5 and then rook b6, and if he takes this, we get in there. So now we have this position. Structurally, black is completely winning. The white rook cannot attack the pawns. These pawns are weak for the entire game. And now watch this. Now we start bringing the king from the corner. We play e4. Why do we play e4? Taking squares away from the opponent and getting f6 and e5 free for our pieces. Now here comes f4. He's trying to prevent us, so we play a4. We shut down the entire pawn structure. Now the knight can't easily get off the back rank. He brings his king. We have b5, undermining the center pawn and trying to take here. When he plays b4, trying to get dynamic with us, we take en passant, knight b3. b4 nearly wins the game on the spot because the rook is hanging and has to get away from the knight, but we have this, takes, here, rook f7, and this endgame is completely winning. Why is it completely winning? Black has two pawns that are passing, so he will jump the knight backwards and start pushing them, but it's even nastier than that. We are going to push this pawn all the way, right? We're going to push it like this, and now it looks like we can't make any more progress. Oh no, we can. Knight to d3. By isolating the bishop to protect the b1 square, our knight now runs in. It cannot be captured because of promotion. The knight now hops around the white position, removes the king from the defense of this pawn, and from the defense of the pawn on h3 and on d5. And if he takes like this, you just run the pawns forward. Pawn to e3, and the game is over because white cannot stop the avalanche of black pawns. Yo, the way that he won this game was unbelievable. Like, legitimately, from this position to just how intelligently he outplayed his opponent with king h8, knight g8, offering the trade of bishops, stabilizing the queen side, removing the queens from the board, and long-term ripping open on the queen side, the side of the board where he was weakest. I mean, that's just game one. That's just game one. This next one is a little bit easier. This one is actually a little bit, it doesn't require a deep analysis. It's just mind-blowing. It's mind-blowing the way he knows 20 moves down the line how bad certain decisions are at this point in the game. So look, this is D4. I don't know who the person playing with black is. Oblivious Spy, cool username, zeros in the username. Something tells me that's not their legal name. I don't think your passport can have zeros on it. Bishop b4, f3, d5. This is an IMSO Indian, not particularly important. So I would like, so this is a 3,000 rated Grandmaster, right? 3,000 rated, you know, plays c5, obviously looking to trade the pieces, maybe trade the queens, you know, castle, typical stuff. So Magnus goes here because he wants to develop another piece. Pawn takes, and now many people here with white would happily take with the knight, develop a bishop, and castle. That's what I would do. I would never trade the queens here, ever. It's just not a move that I would ever consider. And, you know, Magnus goes queen d4. His opponent just, like, in a second takes. And obviously, black needs to prevent knight b5, so black plays the move a6. Now, to me, the position looks completely normal for black. Okay, it's slightly better for white. He has more development and more space, but, like, the position looks totally normal and harmless, right? So what's actually kind of crazy is that after queen d4 and black responding in 3 seconds, I know this sounds a little over-exaggerated. The game is over when this move is played. Now, you're sitting there at home like, what do you mean the game is over? Huh? Look, the eval bar isn't even, I know. But practically speaking, against Magnus, the game is over. Which is like, what? How is that? I'm exaggerating a little bit, but watch. So black plays a6, Magnus develops, and now, you know, he's going to castle. He's going to put his rooks here, and he's going to win this symmetrical structure. Both sides have no D and C pawns, which means that, you know, whoever is able to win the wrestling match of the pawns will then jump into the position with their pieces, like knight b5, knight c7, knight b5, knight d6, etc. So black plays b5, attacking the bishop. The bishop comes here, because Magnus is now going to sustain the pressure on that side of the board throughout this game. And that is literally the entire analysis, because after black plays bishop b7, Magnus didn't even castle. He immediately played the move a4. Now, what do you do with black? Do you take or do you push? You have to do something. He pushes. Okay, now the game is over. The knight drops back to its home square, and now the squares near the pawn will be utilized. This knight will go to d2 and b3, then it will maybe jump to a5 and hit the bishop. These pawns will be separated for the rest of the game, because if they're not separated, then you will go here and threaten this. So that's not possible as well, right? So the knight goes to b1, knight d7, knight d2. Now just like king f2, he doesn't even castle. King f2, right? Rook c1. So we're battling over there. Again, it's all about the pressure on this side of the board. This is where the game will be won and lost for white. That move doesn't do anything. So we play knight b3. We try to trade the knight. And if you don't want to trade, we go to a5. And then when you move here, we bring the second knight because we want to trade. Why? Because we're going to try to win the endgame. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to win the endgame. Rook c7, Magnus takes, rook c4. What is the idea of rook c4? Pressure the knight, double the rooks, maybe rook b4 in the future. Not right away, there's tactics. Rook c8, rook c1. Black absolutely cannot defend the position anymore. We drop the knight back to b3. Overwhelming pressure. You now have to take a step backwards. I have rook c7, and now I can win this pawn because this is protected. I shouldn't take you because then you would take like this. Even that position is winning. And Magnus Carlsen is now completely winning because he has a pawn 4 squares away from promotion. It is the outermost pawn, and that is the reason the game was over on the 9th move. Once black literally went for this little pawn advance, the game was over because he would strike at the pawn, maneuver his pieces around, and then he would win the game. And he did literally all of that. Look at the time spend. Yo, look, he had 2:49 on the clock. The game was over. He spent 20 seconds. He beat a 3,000 rated Grandmaster in 20 seconds. I understand it's blitz, but look at black's time. Black actually had to spend this time because he was like, yo, my position is ass. Magnus played on average every single move in about 1.5 seconds. Well, how do you beat somebody with this type of chess understanding? You don't, frankly. Yeah, and then he went on to win the game. Okay, he won the pawn, and, well, I mean, he just won the game in a little bit because he's just going to win everything. Okay, fantastic. Now, his 3 strongest opponents, 3,200, 3,233, and 3,200, 3,199. Now, the last 2 games against Hans and against Erigaisi are defensive games. They are games where he was actually, like, not playing for a win, but still has unbelievable endgame understanding, and was kind of, like, always fighting, you know? That's the best way that I would describe it. Now, Okay, so c4, e5, right? g3. This is a very normal English opening. c4, e5, g3, super, super, super main line. Bishop g2 is going to happen, and then he's going to develop along the diagonal. But there's a line here with black, and that line is h5. This is a very, very dynamic move. It's a good blitz weapon. It's also been played in classical chess. I mean, you basically just want to play h4. Now, if white plays h4, I was so excited about that move, I spit everywhere. I'm going to sip my coffee and pretend like that didn't happen. Last time I drank this in a video, people were like, "You drink coffee with a straw?" Yeah, I'm American. I make myself an iced latte at home, and I drink it with a straw. And like, what are you gonna do? You know what I mean? It's normal. Anyway, if white plays h4, you get the g4 square, and that's not particularly, it's not particularly pleasant. So, bishop g2, h4. Now, allowing black to get the pawn to h4 is probably also not the right way to play. I actually think the best move against h5, if I'm not mistaken, is like h3. No, it's not h3. It's knight f3 immediately, preventing h4. Yeah, but that's kind of tough to play. So, bishop g2, h4. Now, remember how I told you the previous game ended on move 9? So, this game ends on move 7. Knight f3 from Gurel. It is like, hey, I'm not going to deal with this pawn. Like, I don't care about it. I'm not going to take it. I'm just going to develop my pieces. And if Magnus wants to play h3 and attack my bishop, I will just drop it back. And in the long run, there is no way this pawn will be good for black. There's just no way. Because normally you do this to attack somebody, but now you've blocked your own rook. So now it doesn't even make sense. Like, is black going to castle? If he castles, the rook is here. So the pawn loses a defender. If he doesn't castle, okay, good luck ever attacking me. But I'm literally telling you, this decision will cost him the game. Now, again, you will sit at home and go, you're over-exaggerating. Well, let's proceed. d6, okay? e3, he develops the knight. Maybe he will trade this knight and have a pawn here, or maybe he will put the knight on g4 for some more pressure. Let's see. Knight takes. Okay, it just makes it easy. Queen f6, bishop e2. You see white is trying to develop this way and kind of leave this pawn exactly as it is. Now Magnus plays bishop b4 check, kind of messing with the equilibrium of the position. Now bishop d2 is already a mistake. So bishop d2 is a mistake because you are losing a defender of the b2 pawn. You actually have to drop your knight back, which is not normal at all. And now Magnus gets to play e4. So this move allows him to pick up the pawn on b2. And like I said, all of these decisions are a mix of playing, yes, the best move in the middle game, but also long-term endgame pressure. When you take the pawn on b2, the transformation of the position is black gave away an e-pawn, white now has doubled e-pawns. When you win this pawn, you split the a and the c pawns, and now white has what's called a queenside majority. So you have a 4, which could turn into, a 2-on-0, potentially, or at the minimum a 1-on-0. This doubled e-pawn for white doesn't leave a good impression. It's kind of nice, but you can't push it forward at all, right? So let's see, castles, right? And now bishop g4. So now Magnus is just straight up threatening to win the game. He's threatening to take the knight, remove the defender of the bishop. So Idis has to make a move. He plays rook b1 attacking this, and now Magnus used the center attack to win both queenside pawns. So suddenly, deep in the endgame, he will just have passed pawns. So in every endgame, black is now winning. He's just winning because he has an extra pawn and he has an outside. We just saw an outside pass pawn, right? We saw an a pawn just completely, make it through. So it's very, very bad here already. Rook a1 back, queen b2, rook b1, and of course he just retreats. He doesn't want to draw. Now we have bishop b4, pawn takes. So the rook is open. This rook is still here. The black king can actually comfortably sit in the center of the board because there's no attack. There's no attack coming back, right? And the pawns are doubled and everything. Now, remember how I told you this pawn was going to be a long-term endgame deciding factor? Well, we'll get there. Bishop takes. Knight takes. Now watch this. Queen goes to f3, right? Threatens mate. Knight f4 offering a queen trade. A lot of you here, right, would grab this pawn and then try to bring in the knight. So we have queen d5. Now Idis does not get checkmated, but watch this. Knight e5, rook takes b4. So black is only up a pawn. Magnus is only up a pawn, but the position is -4. Why? Because after b6, rook b2, check, king h1. And somehow, this pawn is the freaking hero. The pawn and the knight together completely strand the king in the corner. The king cannot leave the corner at all. The knight completely dominates the position. White doesn't have a way to remove the knight at all. There's no way to remove the knight. The only thing with white you need to worry about is this, but you can't even leave the back rank because of mate. So the position is hopeless. Now Magnus has the luxury to move his king. Rook c2, there is no threat. Now you play rook a5. Why do you play rook a5? Because you're threatening g5 to remove this. You also have rook c5 trading whenever you want it to create 2 passed pawns to walk down the board. We have e4. Here comes rook c5. Of course, white cannot trade the rooks. Now we have rook c3. You are defending the knight forever. Rook e3 offers a trade. And the second that he reacts to trying to get rid of this knight, you have takes, and the knight jumps into d2. And you will win at least the pawn. After you win the pawn, you will try to promote your b-pawn. The king is completely stranded in the corner, and the pawn on h3 is perhaps the biggest cause of discomfort for the white pieces. Just, like, mind-blowing that on the second and the third moves of this game, you played h5, h4, which is clearly a hostile move. Like, you are looking to open up the position and trade, and, he just goes h3. And then he just, like, outmaneuvers the opponent with e4, queen b2, queen a2. And just, trades down the material and is like, hey, we'll trade the queen. I'll win a pawn. Then when he goes here, I'm going to take. Okay, he's going to win my pawn on b4, but I don't really care if he wins my pawn on b4 because then he can't win any of my other pawns, and I'm going to play f3. And if he stops me, then I'll immediately get in on a2 with the support of this pawn. And g5 is coming. Like, now, 2 more. And I told you in the very beginning of this video that these 2 were the most impressive, in particular because of the clock. So both of these games were played in the online chess.com tournament that they have, the Tuesday tournament, 5 minutes per player. The second one against Arjun Erigaisi really is heinous. So this game against Hans Niemann, starts out as a ready opening. It's a double fianchetto. The opening is not particularly important. It was very clear that it was very much like a feel-out process. A little bit of pawn wrestling happened. You see Magnus playing very kind of non-committal chess. Now we get a totally locked structure, and that means we're going to have a lot of maneuvering. So first he plays h4 and bishop h3. So the bishop takes control of the diagonal. It's very nice, but black is obviously fighting. Knight h5, Hans is a very, very good player. Plays king h8 himself, and he's preparing pawn advancements. Bishop c1, we have a6, a4, and bishop h7 back, and black is at some point going to prepare some sort of pawn attack. Probably, maybe they will make a draw, maybe not. Now, here's something really funny happens. Magnus plays queen f5 check, so he wants Hans to take him, and then this, and then he wants this square for his knight, except he completely forgets that g3 is hanging. So actually, for a move, Magnus is just straight up losing. But Hans he has so much respect for the opponent, he just never thought he would make a mistake like that, so both of them have a blind spot. What you should have played here is queen c8. Again, why I said these games were impressive, not because of the offensive, it's because of the defensive nature of these games. So, as this game progresses, Hans Niemann is playing very, very well. I mean, he plays e4, sacrificing a pawn, and after pawn takes, he gets rid of Magnus's knight, and then takes on g4. You have to take it with the king, so he sacrifices a pawn to get Magnus's king in dire straits, plays knight h5. I mean, it looks like just in a moment he's going to be winning. Rook f2, it's a shuffling game, king h2. Magnus is also down 20 seconds on the clock, so he's not always playing these games for a win, but even when he is scrambling in low time, watch. They're scrambling. It looks like, Hans is just attacking him, and he's not going to be able to make any progress. Rook f8, rook f1. Hans clearly outplaying him in the scramble here. 20 seconds, still time advantage. Rook e6, king d3. And watch this. Now it's +3. How did that happen? Magnus, despite looking like everything was trending for Hans, like his king has to walk in the open. Oh my God, it's scary. The entire time, it was all an illusion. Magnus knew very well, once he consolidated his king's position and got these pawns moving, connected past pawns, he was just going to win the game. He just had to catch his opponent at a moment in the scramble where he wasn't paying attention. So now if you play f4, I'm getting in with my rook. So we have to keep defending against that. We have to keep defending. Now look at this. The second he takes his eye off the ball, we walk the king over here. So we actually walk the king to a better position. And now he took his eye off the ball, and we have f4 coming. First, we need to consolidate the center. Oh, he did it for us. He could have played on the e file. He goes here, f4. Now we have f4, we have e4. Now we win. 35 seconds on the clock. He's down 14 seconds on the clock. Look at this. How is he going to win this position in 30 seconds? h5, rook g8, pawn takes, triple pawns, rook e5. How does he win this? Oh, now black has to move. He's going to move his rook. I'm going to move my king now. I'm going to reposition the king. The second that Hans makes a run for it, rook d2. How will Magnus win this with 11 seconds? How is he going to win this endgame with 11 seconds on the clock? g7. You could have taken the pawn with check. It really didn't matter. Rook d7, rook d6. He has 7 seconds. How's he going to win? e6, rook g7, king f4. This is 5 seconds on the clock. Magnus getting the job done here. Outmaneuvers Hans Niemann. Wins this game. On the board and on time. He was going to win on time as well. But the next one that I'm going to show you, this next endgame, is just like the ability to not just play endgames methodically and with pressure, the ability to play endgames in time trouble. Yo, I couldn't believe what I watched when he played this game. This is a game against Arjun Erigaisi, all right, one of the leading grandmasters in India. So the opening doesn't really matter. Very solid opening, very solid, I said solid twice. I meant to say very boring. I mean, there's some intricacies, but, we're trading some pieces, and bishop b8 is kind of a weird move, but Erigaisi was faster than Magnus. He was up this game on time, and bishop d8, knight b3. Now, it starts to get a little interesting here. Like, Magnus's pawn is targeted on b5, and he's down 40 seconds on the clock. So he's down 40 seconds. 125 to 204. He's got to defend this position. b5 is weak, so he goes here. He goes here and loses the f6 pawn. Bishop b2, he has to defend this endgame, down on time and down a pawn. King f7. The last game against Hans, he was never, worse. He wasn't defending. Defending is a hard skill in chess, so he is 148 to 109. This is a serious time disadvantage. Very serious. Erigaisi trades. The reason he does this is he just assumes that with some stability, he will bring his king, he will push his pawns, and probably he will beat Magnus. Knight to e3. Ugly defending, but very necessary defending. Knight g4, the pawn goes to h5. Now we have check. And this is Arjun's biggest advantage of the game, but Magnus has to start playing a little bit faster. White now needs to play king g2 and slowly make some progress. He plays f3, fine, slowly makes some progress. Magnus now has to begin playing every move virtually instantly. Bishop c7, h4, Arjun trades, knight g6 in. Arjun also playing faster to keep sustained pressure on the clock. 48 to 102, knight e5 back, king g8, king g3, right? f4. Now, Magnus probably can take this knight, but he doesn't want to. He just keeps playing. He forces his opponent to keep playing despite being down on time. He's like, you're going to have to beat me. King f2, king e7. Arjun is game though. He keeps being up 10, 15 seconds on the clock. Knight g5, king g6. Bishop back to d4. Okay, shuffling 28 seconds now for Magnus. Bishop c7, bishop c8. 22 seconds for Magnus. He's going to lose on time. I have no idea. I don't know why he didn't just trade the bishop for the knight. Knight to g. Whoa. Instead of playing e5 and allowing the king in, instead of playing king e3 and potentially making a draw, Arjun loses the pawn on f4. So suddenly, not only is White not playing for a win, White is defending. I mean, White just lost the pawn. White might, lose another pawn, and Black is going to have passed pawns. But Magnus only has 18 seconds. I mean, you can literally do anything you want here, right? So the bishop goes to e7. Magnus goes e5. Arjun plays knight back to f3. The bishop goes to g4. He unpins himself. The bishop goes back to c8. Yo, what is Magnus doing? He's got 15 seconds. How? Arjun goes bishop d6, king f6, bishop c7, bishop b7, check here, knight g5, king d7. I mean, there is no way for Magnus to break through in this position. King d6, bishop takes pawn. Wow. So 12.4 seconds on the clock. I told you in the beginning of this video, this game was obscene. Arjun here played bishop a5. It was just sort of like a pass-back move. The problem with the way that he did this is the bishop is threatening to take the knight, and then the bishop is threatening to take the pawn. White needed to go king f3 here. That was like probably the only move. When he did this, Magnus took his knight and then took his pawn. And now Magnus has 10.0 seconds to win this endgame. And it's not even winning, it's a draw. Why is it potentially winning? It's because you have passed pawns, so you're going to push those pawns. But the opposite colored bishops and White's own passed pawn will prevent these pawns from ever successfully moving forward. Not to mention, the guy has double his time, basically. King g3, Magnus pre-moves bishop g6. All right? Magnus pre-moves king f5. Magnus doesn't quite pre-move this move, but apparently now it's winning. Arjun had to play something else. He had to not defend this pawn, apparently. Apparently. I mean, I don't know. You know, he goes here, and now the king makes a run to d3, and he's going to win that pawn. That was really the problem all along, is he's going to win that pawn, and he's going to make a red carpet for this pawn, and this pawn is still moving. This was a fake threat. The real threat was infiltrating. Now Magnus has this endgame with 8.7 seconds on the clock. King to e3. Magnus pre-moves e4. Magnus pre-moves king b3. Magnus pre-moves c3. Magnus pre-moves c2. The king goes back to defend. Now you play e3. Now the king goes to c1. Now this is just game over, right? Not quite. Bishop c3. Magnus pre-moved e1 because he just didn't see anything else, and that was a huge mistake. Right? He probably thought that White was going to go here, but there was a trick in the position. Bishop c3, you can't take it because it's stalemate. So Magnus accidentally loses the queen. So he now has 7 seconds to win this position. He has 7 seconds to win. He can't push this, and he can't push this. So he goes king c4 back. 6.2 seconds. I'm telling you, I could not believe this watching it live. Bishop h4. The king goes to d4. He now has to run the king, promote the pawn, promote this pawn, and win. He doesn't have enough time. He doesn't have enough time. King e3, king f3, king g4. He's pushing. Here, probably Arigaisi should have gone far. He should have went like here and here, but he was obviously just trying to flag him. h3, bishop g3, king, okay. Magnus wasn't expecting that move, so now he has to burn even more time. He was pre-moving everything. King f3, king g2, he pushes. He now has 5 seconds to win this endgame. And what he pre-moved here, by the way, he lost time. He meant to pre-move. King f2, now he's pre-moving. c1 queen, 3.5 seconds to mate from here. And queen check. Bishop d5 cuts off squares. Queen c6, and Arigaisi here needed to go to a5, at which point Magnus would have pre-moved this. He obviously pre-moved this anyway because this is mate, and then he would have brought his king and he would have won the game. Arjun went here. I mean, with 2 seconds remaining, like, this is just so crazy because the literal endgame where he was winning started with 10 seconds on the clock. He played 30 moves in 8 seconds, bro. Like, to be able to play an endgame this precisely, considering he was defending the endgame for 40 moves. I don't even know when this endgame began, this 3-piece endgame. It began on move 30, and he was defending it, yeah, literally for 40 moves. For 50 moves, he was defending this endgame, and then he was trying to play it for a win. He can do it when the position is good, and he can convert games into endgames. He's just like also unbeatable in the endgame. It's just like, he will just make moves and move and move and move and move. And then he's gonna, I mean, how did he win this? Like, somebody explain, how did he win in 8 seconds from this position? It's unbelievable. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed, and yeah, that's all I have for you today. So, get out of here.